When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show, and we begin this second hour of the program with one of our favorite guests. Every time she is on this program, I mean this, I get bombarded with messages from listeners that say, Elias, thank you for having her on. I haven't heard her voice. Her voice is so important. Thank you. So she's back to start off this year 2025. Yasmine Mohammed, human rights activist, author of the book Unveiled, How the West Empowers Radical Muslims, and of course host of the Yasmine Mohammed podcast, joins us now. Hi, Yasmine.
Hi, Elias. Thank you so much for having me again.
So, Yasmine, I'm going to start off, host's prerogative. I'm going to start off with a story from my life, okay? Because over the holidays, I went to Germany. My wife, fiance technically, feels like the wife. She's half German, so we went to visit family. And we left on Friday, I believe Friday the 20th. And the afternoon that we were leaving, there was that attack on the Christmas market in Germany. And our trip was to go to Christmas markets in Germany, right? So that's how we left on our trip, right? With the news that there's been a terrorist attack at a Christmas market in Germany. And then when we came back on New Year's Day, and we're at the airport, and we're sitting we're in a lounge. Thank goodness for the credit card. We're in a lounge. And all of the TVs were on the news of the New Orleans terrorist attack, right? Now, the FBI has revealed that the person responsible for that attack, Shamsuddin Jabbar, traveled to Ontario in 2023. And there's been a lot of talk about how this person became radicalized to the extent that they'll drive through a crowd in New Orleans. Yasmine, I guess it's fair to say this is your life covering this kind of stuff, dealing with this kind of thing. What goes through your mind? We have a holiday and we've got different types of terrorist attacks. What should our listeners know and be talking about when it comes to this?
Oh, that is, it's really difficult to have these conversations, especially around the holiday. I feel for you. I feel for your family. I know you have a beautiful new baby, and I'm thinking of all the families that were affected that day, both days. It's really difficult to constantly be in this darkness and be having these conversations over and over and over again. It's sad, but it's also almost equally frustrating for me because I feel like 2 + 2 is 4. Like we see the things that could possibly happen, and they do happen over and over and over again, and we seem to just keep on repeating ourselves. We're not doing things differently. So unfortunately, what happened with this man in New Orleans is he was attending a mosque he's actually from Houston, Texas, and his mosque was known to have radical imams that come and speak, all of your basic stuff, right? American women are whores, anti-Semitism, Christians and non-Muslims are less than animals, all of all the greatest hits of the extremists.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was being pumped into this man's mind week by week. And it's important to note too that he's a convert to Islam, and converts are quite often a lot more zealous because they want to prove their Muslimness. So they will go to the most literal interpretations of the religion. They'll go to the extremes to try and prove their authenticity, how Muslim they really are. And, he was going through stuff in his life. His real estate business was, going bankrupt. He was going through his third divorce, and it was like his tinderbox. When you're constantly telling people week after week after week, this group of people is to blame. They are the reason for all of your problems. God hates them. You need to hate them too, and you need to curse them, and da 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 da. So when you have problems in your life, then you immediately turn to blame that group. I mean, I recently just watched a movie called The Order, where it was talking about a very similar mindset with white supremacists, and this was based on a true story, and how, week after week after week, when they're in their sermons, if they're being told, you're we're blaming Black people, we're blaming Jewish people, we're blaming, immigrants, we're blaming this, we're blaming that. And what ended up happening was a Jewish man ended up getting brutally murdered because of this
Mm.
rhetoric. So when we see these kinds of things happening, when they are happening in a mosque, people feel like, well, I can't touch that because that's religious freedom. But what they're not understanding is that there's a big difference between Muslims and Islamists. There's a big difference between your average everyday Muslim law-abiding citizen and then these extremists that are trying to
Hmm.
wreak havoc and terrorism, death and destruction upon the Western world.
But what I guess what I want to try and figure out is what happened in that at the mosque in Houston, right? Like, to me, if I find out someone became radicalized because they went onto the internet and they went onto forums and darker groups and they went down to the depths of the internet and they became radicalized, I can understand that. But when I find out someone is just going to the mosque that everyone else goes to in the community, and then this happens. And I just saw some video, the organization Memory, MEMRI,
Mm-hmm.
and they translate what happens in mosques. They post it online because I think a lot of this now actually is a broadcast on the internet. And I was watching what happened in a mosque in near Detroit. Okay, and the words I heard from the imam, they were so inflammatory. And it's in front of a packed house, a packed mosque. And I said, my goodness, this is happening. This is not in the dark. This is not on the internet. And I'm trying to get to, what's going on here. Where are those voices, right? The clear line that you brought up between a Muslim and Islamist. Where are those voices speaking out?
Yeah, so I'm just going to refer to that
Yeah.
imam you were speaking about because I
Yeah.
want your listeners to know the kinds of rhetoric that is so blatant, that is so common, that they feel so empowered that they can say in a microphone at the pulpit. He was talking about how killing Jewish people is a win-win situation.
Yeah.
That's what he was teaching his followers. So yes, you're right. There are hundreds, probably thousands of people, once it goes on the internet that are going to be listening to this. But it's just like with these white supremacists. There were hundreds, thousands of people listening to that kind of rhetoric as well. But it's a tinderbox, right? It has to reach the ears of somebody who is mentally unstable enough and who has enough anger in them and is already looking for someone to blame enough for that person to go
Mm-hmm.
and murder that Jewish man who was actually a
Yeah.
radio host.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
But like it's an equation. Do you know what I mean? That you
Mm-hmm.
need all of the parts of this. So not every single Muslim person who hears this kind of rhetoric is going to go out there and kill somebody, but why are we risking it? Why
Mm-hmm.
are we allowing this kind of rhetoric to be normalized just because it's happening in a religious place? And so we're pretending that that's religious freedom. It has nothing to do with religion. They are hiding under religion, right? So imagine if these white supremacists or KKK suddenly started a church where then they felt like, oh, we can say everything that we want because it's hidden under freedom of religion. We would know it. We would recognize it. We would see it. And this is why, that there's this group, Hezbollah Tahrir, which I know you're familiar with, which are having their Caliphate conference in
In
Mississauga,
Canada.
possibly in
Yeah.
Hamilton,
Yeah.
in Canada every year. Every year they have it. But that group is deemed a terrorist organization by almost every single Arab nation on the planet except for three. The people in the Arab world recognize the difference between a Muslim and an Islamist, but it's us here in the West that can't tell the difference because they fool us. They pretend, they hide in the mosques, right? And then they say, this is our religious freedom.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to see, Yasmine, leadership from, Canadian political leaders, Western leaders? Do you think it should be the politicians that are showing the leadership and talking to the Muslim community here? Or should it be the voices from within the Muslim community that are speaking out about what they hear sometimes at mosques?
I wish I could say that it would be the voices from the Muslim community, but they are all scared. If they in their own personal life, look what happens to a girl who decides that she wants to wear jeans, or she doesn't want to wear hijab, or she wants to have a boyfriend, right? She's putting her life in danger. So you can just, that's how everybody is in the Muslim community. These extremists, these terrorists rule everybody and they keep everybody silent. So although there probably are a lot of moderate voices, I'm sorry to say they're irrelevant because they're not courageous enough to speak up. And I'm going to add to that and say here in Canada, not just Canada, America, Europe, all over the West, we don't make it safe for them to speak up either, because when they speak up, they get called Islamophobes. And then you get people talking about trying to criminalize Islamophobia. And if you don't like Islam, then you're an Islamophobe, right? These are the things that we are coming up with here in the Western world. We are the ones that are imposing these bottom-up blasphemy laws. So where is the support? So yes, if politicians, if leaders would come forward, if they would have the spine to speak up and say, absolutely not, this is not acceptable, then the moderate Muslims might feel a little bit more empowered because they'd be like, okay, well, the leadership is behind us at least, right? But right now they don't feel that way. There's a celebration of all the extremism. Look how we celebrate the hijab everywhere and even niqab, right? Like we're not, people are too scared to support the women of Iran because the Islamic regime, and then maybe it's Islamophobia, and look what happened even in Israel on October 7th. Like it's so clear who are the terrorists and who are the victims. But again, you've got people they've got all this moral confusion over something that is totally not ambiguous at all.
Continuing our conversation with human rights activist Yasmine Mohammed. And Yasmine, listen, I just want to get into the work that you're doing with the Clarity Coalition. And I think the Clarity Coalition is all over this so-called Caliphate conference that's coming to Hamilton or Mississauga or wherever, somewhere in Canada. Why don't you get into that for a bit? What are you doing there? And tell us why Canadians should be so concerned about this conference.
Yeah, so the Clarity Coalition is a global coalition of people from all around the world who are concerned about this surge of Islamism, whether it's happening in our media, in our governments, in our schools, etc. So we have a Canadian chapter that's been working overtime lately with the anti-Palestinian racism issues that are going on in the curriculums in our schools, and all of the anti-Semitism that's just surging across the country. And now we're focusing on this Caliphate conference that's going on. I should say that this coalition is made up of Muslims, ex-Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Jews, atheists, it doesn't matter. We're people from all around the world, all different walks of life, journalists, activists, academics, and all of us are concerned, obviously. And we are trying to get our governments as concerned as we are. So we have with us ex-Hizb ut-Tahrir members who are very familiar with how there are other Hizb ut-Tahrir members in Canadian government, whether it's conservative, liberal, NDP, they are everywhere.
Wow.
And this conference that is making waves this year, this conference actually happens in Canada every single year, but people just haven't noticed it yet. So the fact that people have noticed it, are getting angry about it, the fact that they feel so empowered to post their videos, and in their videos, it's so obvious what they're after. They're not hiding anything. They're so transparent. In the past, they've been, they've kind of had this double speak. They were being a little bit duplicitous. They're not doing that anymore. The gloves are completely off. They're talking about how their aim is to spread Islam across the planet, and it's the only way to save the planet, and it's the only way for us to move forward, and this is what we have to do. And Muslims are powerful in numbers, and that we cannot wait for our governments. We cannot wait for, Arab nations. We have to do this ourselves. We have to free Palestine. We have to globalize the Intifada. These are the kinds of things that they are calling for very, on social media, very comfortably.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because part of me says we should let them have this conference and see exactly what they say and take notes. I think it's good that it's out in the open because some people think it should be canceled. We should. I'm like, no, no. Actually, let's see exactly what they're saying and make sure we know who's behind this. I don't want them going down underground. I like that they're trying to do this out in the open.
You're right. No, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely correct. Let people see, let people get angry, let people respond, let people contact their MPs, and let them know that we should be deeming these guys a terrorist organization, just like so many other nations all around the world,
Mm.
including the UK, and like I mentioned, almost every single Arab nation. Why are we allowing them to be so comfortable in our country? Why is this a safe haven for terrorists? This every single Canadian should
Yeah.
be, enraged about this.
Can I ask you, Yasmin? I want to make sure we have some time here because my X feed, my Twitter feed, in the last week or so has become the algorithm side. Not the the for you is the following is still following. It's still the same, but the algorithm feed has become consumed by a lot of Elon Musk tweets with regards to this grooming gang scandal in the United Kingdom. And I guess I'm happy you're on today because I just want to parse what's true from what's not true in all this, because sometimes on social media, you're going to see things that maybe are too hyperbolic. But sometimes I feel when I see certain aspects, I'm like, oh, maybe we're not being told enough. So how do you see this? The fact that all of this in the last week, thanks to Elon Musk, has come out into the light. How do you view what's happening on social media, and how should all of us be talking about this scandal in the UK?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what you just said about Hizb ut-Tahrir. It's better when it's open. Let the
Mm.
sunlight come out and disinfect this, right? So we have been talking about this rape gang scandal for, over 10 years, and it's been so difficult to get anyone to pay attention because as soon as you open your mouth, the response is, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. Oh, you're a bigot. Oh, you're a racist. The same typical thing. This is the
Can I,
subtitle of my
can I
book,
say
right?
so,
How the West empowers.
can I just say one thing, Yasmin? As someone that I've seen these stories before, and I'll tell you from where I'm coming from, because maybe I feel guilty now. Maybe we should have been talking about this here. And I say to myself, it was so fantastical to hear, wait, 250,000 women were raped. I said that's impossible. So immediately my mind said, oh, that's just conspiracy nonsense because it sounded too unbelievable. I'll tell you that from my perspective, I think that's why I never tackled this earlier.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not alone in that. A lot of people didn't thought it was just too crazy. A lot of people thought that the fact that it was like, predominantly Pakistani Muslim men, they thought, well, that can't be right. This can't be true. There was a lot of reasons why people felt like they didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But the people who were brave enough to speak out about it had to suffer the consequences. They had to pay the price for that. So it is good news now through Elon Musk tweeting about it that it has become mainstream and at least we can have the conversation now without being shut down because it's the being shut down part which is the worst part. Because now that we start the conversation, we can talk about how this is not a problem unique to the UK, how the Pakistanis in Pakistan are raping Christian, Sikh, and Hindu girls in the exact same manner. So when people say, no, 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 we can't talk about this. We can't talk about that they're predominantly Pakistani Muslim men because that has nothing to do with it because all men rape. It's like, no, that's absolutely not true. You do have a problem within the Pakistani community in Pakistan. This is an issue that has been carried from their homeland over to the UK.
Mm.
They treat non-Muslim girls as things to be used and thrown away. I'm sure you've read some of these court transcripts. It's
Yeah.
absolutely horrific the way these girls were being treated. It's beyond, I mean, rape is bad enough, but this is like demonic, sadistic rape of these
Is
girls.
it different here now? Do you feel there's no way it can be covered up like it was over the last decade? Is now it's out and the West will, the UK, the West will deal with it?
I don't know about that
Mm.
because they have a Labour government, they have Keir Starmer, and right now, the British people have been pushing really, really hard for a national inquiry. They need a national inquiry because they've had a few inquiries at the local level, and that never works
Mm.
because you've got city councillors, you've got mayors, you've got police, all of these, there's men in every single part, they lawyers, men in every single part of the society are involved in these rape gangs. And so that's why it needs to be at a national level. There needs to be a coalition at the local level to be able to do a proper investigation. And they have just voted that no, this current Labor government had voted no, we're not going to do an investigation. So the victims are still pushing. The victims have still not received any kind of acknowledgement, any kind of, the word I want to say is satisfaction, but that's not the word. You know what I mean? But we're so busy talking about coddling Muslim Pakistani rapists, that we're not worried about the victims. Like, we've forgotten about protecting them.
Yeah.
But people are too concerned about protecting race relations over protecting actual young girls.
Well, just, I mean, the title of your book said it all, right? On how we have enabled this kind of behavior. Yasmine, we're going to have to leave it there. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'll forward all of our listeners to your social media and your podcast, the Yasmine Mohammed podcast, if they want to hear more from you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. My absolute pleasure, always.
Human rights activist Yasmine Mohammed.